everyone out there? Welcome back to the Phantoms Fanatic YouTube channel. I am back with another review, and this week I am reviewing Avatar 2, Way of the Water, released this year in 2022, starring Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver, Kate Winslet, Stephen Lang, Michelle Yeoh, Cliff Curtis, Ona Chaplin, Trinity Bliss, Jamie Flatters, Britton Dalton, and it was directed by James Cameron. And obviously, this is the long-awaited sequel to Avatar, which I reviewed 2 weeks ago. And yeah, this will be the last review of 2021. Obviously, I'm proud with how the channel has gone this year. I managed to stay consistent with the release of the Meandering Conversations podcast and this show of my reviews. And, you know, in 2022 to 3, or whatever year it will be, whatever year next year will be, I plan on doing a lot more with the channel with consistency. I plan on trying to get at least 3 reviews out a week and then an episode of Meandering Conversations. And I plan on streaming a bit more. But other than that, let's talk about Avatar 2: Way of the Water. So, if you guys have seen my review for Avatar, you guys know that I think it's an okay movie. I think it had a lot of missed out potential of what it could do. It is a spectacle of a movie, and the same things that hold up in Avatar hold up in this movie. The shot cinematography, the visual effects, and the action scenes are all well done. Obviously, Pandora is still fucking gorgeous now. Everything still looks photorealistic. And I did see it in IMAX 3D, and let me tell ya, it was worth seeing in IMAX, especially all the breathtaking underwater scenes of Pandora, learning about this different race of Na'vi, the water tribe practically, and how they evolve differently than the forest Na'vi. I liked that aspect. I wanted more of that in the first movie, and we did get this. We got new tribes of the Na'vi. We get to learn about their ways, the way of the water, and how they exist, and we get to learn about these new creatures that they tame like the other things. You have these dope-ass fucking whale things that go through the ocean, and you have this lone badass one who went against their way, and how they're like hyper-intelligent and peaceful creatures, but this one went against the way and tried to attack the humans coming to Pandora, and he ended up being exiled, but he still shows up a few scenes in this, and I like that aspect of these whales, especially in the relations of the Na'vi tribe and how they're super intelligent. Obviously, that gets into James Cameron's fucking tirade with this movie. We're trying to talk about whaling culture and stuff like that, but for the most part, it's done well enough, and I found the whale aspect and how they're super intelligent, especially this rogue whale that ends up helping out in the climax with some badass action scenes. I found all of that shit super engaging, and I wanted more. So, the plot of this is that Sam Worthington is Jake Sully. Him and Neytiri have raised a family and stuff like that on Pandora, but then the humans return, obviously, causing more trouble, where Jake Sully is leading a resistance, but then to do a close call with him and his family, and the return of Stephen Lang's Colonel, he feels like to protect his family, he needs to move away, so then they head to water tribe of the Na'vi to learn their ways to save his family and just hide out. So, I will say, as I was talking earlier about the spectacle stuff, that stuff still holds up, in my opinion. The spectacle and visual aesthetic still holds up. I actually think this movie does some story beats and more interesting things better than the first one, because the first one is a very standard plot. This one is at least somewhat original, even though it's a family moving away from people, trying to hide out on the run from a revenge plot, which is done before, but this one does at least try new things and learning more about Pandora, which I think is the most interesting aspect of these films, is exploring Pandora as a thing. And I will say that aspect of the film holds up in the fact that they add a lot more interesting character motivations and dynamics. Obviously, Stephen Lang's Colonel returns as an avatar through confusing bits. But I will say what they do with him in this, he's a lot more subdued and a lot less over the top, mainly because they give him somewhat of a moral compass in this, and they give him an interesting revenge arc, and what they do with him in this I do enjoy. I will say he's good at playing this. I actually kind of liked him as a villain, because he's a lot less over the top and more reserved than he was in the first movie. So I like that aspect. And the humans still invading Pandora, I like how they changed it up other than just fucking looking for unobtainium. They changed it up by saying Earth is dying, so now we have to move here. I like that aspect from the fact that they try to change it up and at least add more ideas into this, even though they have another fucking colonel who drinks coffee and is wearing a robot suit, smaller robot suit, and drinking coffee with the robot. And it's like, what the fuck? Does every military personnel leader have to have a cup of coffee in this fucking universe? I even parodied that in the thumbnail for Avatar 1, and they do it in this movie. Before I get into my problems with the movie, let me finish saying what I was saying. The acting in this is a lot better. I will say most of the actors are doing a pretty good job in this. And Sam Worthington as Jake Sully is a lot better than he is in the first movie, even though he narrates, but not as much. And the fact that he makes him more of a father protecting his children than just a bland savior character, and he's entirely in his Avatar form. I feel like his acting is a lot better than the first movie. I liked him a lot more in this. Zoe Saldana as Neytiri, she's the best actress in the film. She is fucking killing it in this performance. She brings so much emotion to the character when things are happening, and she is just a straight up badass. Neytiri is still one of the things that hold up in this movie. And Jake Sully and Neytiri's kids, there's 4 of them, which I'm like, why the fuck have 4 of them? And to be honest, you really only get to focus on 2 of them, and then one of them, something bad happens to one of them, and then am I supposed to feel bad because I kept mixing up those 2 kids? At least the other 2 ones I could tell apart, because one's voiced by Sigourney Weaver, which is a weird thing, the fact that you have a younger character voiced by a fucking grown-ass woman, and they pitch shift her. And what they do with that character, because she is the daughter of Sigourney Weaver's avatar, because Sigourney Weaver died, but her avatar was still alive and pregnant, so that gave birth to her. And they have her connect more with Pandora in this as the living system thing. I like that aspect, but this character, they're obviously setting up stuff for sequels, and it is interesting, but it's also weird that Sigourney Weaver voices her. I think her performance is alright, but it's still weird hearing that aspect. And then Jake Sully's other kids I really didn't care for that much. One of them has a relationship with the rogue whale, which is interesting, but the other one is kind of just forgettable, and I really don't know how to feel about that aspect. But let's get into my problems with this film. It's too damn long. Does not... As I said, Avatar 1, surprisingly, I was not bored throughout that movie. I never felt its runtime. In this, you fucking feel it when it gets to that end climax. They needed to cut a lot of shit from this, even though a lot of it is cool visual spectrum shit and good effects and grand-taking, you know, shots because of the cinematography in IMAX. Obviously, all of that is important, but they needed to cut this shit down. It did not need to be as long as it was. And then, it does, and you feel it, it does drag in a lot of areas, and I feel like they needed to cut a good amount from this film. It needed to be a good 40 minutes less than its actual runtime. And then... my other problem with this film, which is a big problem, is the dialogue. And I said the Jake Sully's kids I didn't find all that interesting, and the dialogue doesn't help them with that, because they do this weird thing where in the opening you have and the opening is so rushed through the montage of him raising his kids with Neytiri and then moving along, and I was like, would that be more interesting to see? But at the same time, I'm like... I'm enjoying the main plot that's going on with the Sullys moving to the Way of the Water thing and learning about that, because I find that interesting with Pandora, that I didn't really mind it, but it is a bit rushed in the opening with its pacing for a movie being this long, and I was like, what the fuck, we're already to this point? But yeah, the dialogue in this, though, is not very good. because they do this weird thing where Jake Sully is like, it took me a while to get the language. He's narrating, he's like, it took me a while to get the language down, but eventually you get it. And you see the subtitles on screen as they're speaking Na'vi language fade away, and the Na'vi language turns to English. So by that assumption, I'm assuming that the dialogue that the Na'vi natives are saying is being translated into English for the viewers, so they don't have to be speaking the dialogue, which is fine. But then in other scenes, like with Stephen Lang's character, and without Jake Sully in it, you have the characters going back and forth in Na'vi language, and then you cut to other scenes where the characters are talking, and they're speaking English, but I'm assuming they're speaking Na'vi, and that just gets all fucking confusing with this fucking plot. And I was like, holy shit, why didn't they just think of this differently? Yeah, but and then the dialogue rating isn't very good in general, because you have the kids being like, yo, what's up, bro, or cuz, and shit like that. And even in like a deadly situation where people were almost killed, he's like, see, I saved you, bro. And I was like, who the fuck talks like that in a situation like this? Like, his brother was chained up, they need to go save their families, and he's still acting like a cocky douche bro. And I'm like, what the fuck is the point of this? And then the two dudes, one of them has an accent, then one of them kinda goes back and forth between an accent, to where the point where I got the two of them mixed up, and the characters aren't very memorable, other than them being the two boys. At least the two girls I could tell the difference between. But yeah, those are my obvious with this film. Do I recommend Avatar 2: Way of the Water? If you see it in the cinema, it is definitely worth the 3D IMAX experience, and in my opinion, it does some character things and story elements better than the first movie. I actually think this movie in general overall is better than the first movie. It's a lot less standard, and it tries to be more about something, but it does have sequel-itis where it tries to set up more sequels, which I will definitely check out. This one wasn't as bad as the first one. I actually think this movie's kind of okay. Like, on the higher end of okay, if that makes sense. But yeah, due to the fact that it is a bit long, but I wouldn't really recommend seeing this outside the theater, because the whole point is to see it in theater with the IMAX experience, so I definitely recommend that you see it in that mindset in the theater that way, because then you're getting the most out of what you bargained for. The cinematography, especially in IMAX, is definitely worth seeing, and the action scenes are very well done, as I said, and it does do story elements better, but due to just a bad dialogue script and some bad pacing through the movie, it's way too long, it does end up affecting the overall viewing experience, but I don't know, I had a good time watching it, and I definitely recommend it if you're gonna go see it in IMAX in theaters. But anyways, what did you guys think of Avatar 2: Way of the Water? Everybody has different opinions, and I would like to see your guys' opinions in the comment section down below. If you have any other movies you want me to review, leave those in the comment section as well. Make sure to like and subscribe down below, share the channel, I always like to see the growth of it. And yeah, this will wrap up 2022 on the channel. Except that I think there'll be a Meandering Conversations podcast on the 31st. So stay tuned for that. But for the most part, I think this was a good year for movies, good year for horror. And yeah, I'll be coming out with a best of this year in terms of movies. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a ranking thing or just mentioning my favorites of the year. So be on the lookout for that type of thing. But yeah, the next review, the first review of 2022, will be of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. So make sure you guys look out for that one. Anyways, I will see you all next time.